The Terminalist episode 1 to 3 review, starring Chris Pratt, who does excellent in the role, and actually, I've been having a lot of fun in it. It amazes me that Amazon can simultaneously create a show like The Wheel of Time and also The Terminalist. These two things are not alike in any way. One is obsessed with preaching and educating you and just trying to force anything modern into it so it can destroy the story as much as possible. And the other one really doesn't care. There's not going to be any spoilers in this, but sort of a vague outline of the start, and we do start with a military combat scene that goes wrong, and then he returns to his home country and everything isn't as it seems. This does lead to a sort of mystery box storyline, but it's exactly what you'd expect from something called The Terminalist. Essentially, from episodes 1 to 3, anyway, an action mystery thriller that just goes down point to point, finding the next clue of the mystery and carrying on. I actually don't mind the mystery boxes in general. What I do mind is if there's no actual conclusion, no payoff. You never find out what the solution to the mystery is. That's when I've got a problem with it. So I don't know whether we're going to get that in this, but I imagine just from how they've actually planned it out so far, we will. One of my issues is that they do seem to be really heavily, overly signaling some of the storyline plot points, and I really hope I'm wrong about them and that's just a misdirection, because if it is, they made them way too obvious for me. But that and a perhaps slightly overly long runtime are really where the negatives for me end in episode 1 to 3. Sure, there's some scenes where not a lot happens or it drags on a bit too long and you could have cut it out for pace reasons, but these are really minor issues compared to issues that I get in a lot of other shows. You see, this isn't a show that cares about what Twitter or reviewers think of it. From the first few episodes, it seems like this was simply a show built to entertain people. It's a very traditional thing that you could have got from the 90s. It was just built for men to shoot people, and that was the entertaining part. Yes, there's more to it than that. There's investigations, there's mystery, but the core part of the show is to entertain people. It's not designed to preach people or push certain social messages in your face, or to tell you that these people are inherently evil from birth, and therefore must be oppressed because in the past something happened over here. Literally, no one cares. This isn't designed to humiliate a nation or push anyone up over others. It just doesn't even mention any of it. And that's something that's rare nowadays. Now, it's not something that makes me enjoy a show. I don't give it points for doing that. That is the bare minimum, the actual baseline of entertainment that I require to even consider something not trash. In a show about the military, they could have easily have sent it down that line to try and shame the people involved, but instead it's got lines like, "We are the people that look into the eyes of evil, and all you've got to do is sit back and reap the benefits," and you couldn't even do that. Chris Pratt is the one that delivers that line, and I think he delivers it awesomely. In that scene, the scene itself is extremely simple, but it's very well done. It starts, and again, minor spoilers, but nothing for the plot, with a guy strapped to a chair who then just immediately vomits all over himself, which is very reasonable given the situation, and the way it ends is perfectly well-deserved. With the boys going on preaching about toxic masculinity and as how men and masculinity are just awful detriments onto the world, and if only women ruled everything, then the world would be a far superior place, then The Terminalist is the exact opposite of that. Very few people have kept up with The Flash. At this point, I'm doing it just out of sheer stubbornness, but the latest season is basically like a knitting convention. Yes, there might be a man in some of the scenes, but he's always going to be surrounded by women, and he's basically the token guy there. But The Terminalist is anything but. It's a show about men, guns, and business, and it's entirely unapologetic about it. In fact, it's so unapologetic, it seems almost custom designed to annoy all of the right people. And those people are the reviewers. And boy, are they annoyed. Because these reviewers have spent years preaching that a show must have various different things in it. We've got to have all of these different relationships and identities, because otherwise the entire show will be destroyed. And The Terminalist disproves that in every single way, and they can't handle it, because it shows they're losing their grip on power. In fact, at the end of the very first episode, they do something which they also did in Wheel of Time, which also provoked a load of raging articles about it, which basically frees him up from what would have been an incredible weight around his neck for the rest of the show, and it could have ruined the rest of the show. You see, we have the Terminalist review, there's plenty of skull cracking and headshots, but it doesn't make much sense, which is basically the fact that they can't physically understand what is going on, because it doesn't fit into their nice little box that they've tried to carve out for all shows over the last few years. He's not obeying the rules! How on earth can we understand this? The show isn't complicated, but The Independent doesn't have people of any intelligence. I mean, sure, they try and portray a veneer of that by using words such as verisimilitude. Yeah, dude, I had to look that one up, but apparently it just means realism. Quite frankly, I think you're laying that one a bit thick, but they despise the fact that the whole thing is desperately masculine, and the story could have easily been created by someone who spent the last couple of decades playing Splinter Cell instead. And I don't know about anyone else, but that to me sounds like a massive plus. Well, we're going to make a story about spies shooting people in the face. That sounds like a positive to me. Those with an appetite for Jack Reacher will find something to enjoy in the violent infallibility of Reese, before they go on to say that they forgot what the plot is, although there isn't a plot. And I have to say, there really isn't that much of one. It's really not a complicated show. If you like guns and shooting people, you'll like the show. Of course, The Guardian, also less concerned with the quality of the show, and more concerned about how many masculine men are in it. Because while I'm sure The Guardian would have preferred the show to be about Chris Pratt's wife, and so he could just follow her around cowering in corners, complaining about his feelings and telling her how amazing she is. Unfortunately, that's not the show. No, The Terminal List is about Chris Pratt giving people what they deserve, and that means that for them, it's definitely a 1-star. It's a listless lead in a dated and drably made military thriller that offers little intrigue or excitement. Unfortunately, we're never going to see Chris Pratt in tears as his wife tells him about the pain of navigating through a truly oppressive patriarchal society, and for that, I can feel The Guardian's pain. Because while they wax lyrical about how they really wish that people would just discover other shows where the drama is transparent and they can go around exploring the gender and sexuality with sensitivity, and it might be The Marvelous Miss Maisel, a female-fronted comedy about female comedy. I can't believe you actually just wrote that. What's being watched the most continues to be a very different story, and that is the red-blooded, dad-would-like action narratives that seem to have connected the most. I've said in a few videos that I'm an action guy. I'm very easy to please when it comes to that. That's why I love the John Wick films. It's just action from start to finish. There's very little plot. And from movies, I love that kind of thing. TV shows for me, they need a little bit more. That's where I prefer there to be a story. There's got to be some kind of hook to drag me along. And this, it does have a plot. There's enough to keep you going from place to place, even if it's just to shift the narrative from set piece to set piece. And while I can say I'm 3 episodes in, maybe that'll tail off later on, or maybe it'll get even better. I don't know yet, but what I do know is this is annoying all of the right people, and they're all saying the things which they see as denigrating the show, which I think are massive positives. It misses out all the hate and the bile that they've basically injected into everything, where people stop caring about the show, stop caring about the cast and the characters, and instead just start focusing on a checklist. Because what goes along with that is a whole host of beliefs that will inevitably ruin characters and shows, especially characters like this. There are parts of the story where a bad writer would have made Chris Pratt's character completely and utterly break down. It would have gone, oh my god, he can't handle it anymore. It would have had him wallowing in his feelings, crying in a corner, completely unable to do what he has to do in this scenario. There's only one response to what happened, and he's doing it. He sucked it up, put his feelings aside, and he's getting the job done. That is something which is desperately missing from modern entertainment. Instead, we've got things like Strange New Worlds, which seems to despise Spock. It makes him do the washing up while everyone else is planning an important mission. But most of all, it's saying that his stoicism is bad, his logic, his emotionlessness is bad, even though it's actually part of his species. The entire series of Strange New Worlds seems to be, let's just make Spock an emotional wreck, because to them, emotions are power. Whereas in this show, all of that goes out the window. They get rid of everything that could have possibly distracted from the core part of the show, and that is why I've liked the first 3 episodes. It could go either way later on, but so far, I'm very happy with it, and I do recommend you watch it, because I think you can tell a lot about a show from the people that like it and the people that don't, especially the reasons why they don't, because the negative reviews aren't about the show. The negative reviews are always about Chris Pratt, because they despise Chris Pratt. They despise him as a person, because he's not someone that goes along with their ideology. He's someone that doesn't need this stuff injected into his movies or his TV shows. These are people that will give his show a bad review because of which way he voted, or will say things like he made a controversial post about his daughter because he described her as a gorgeous, healthy daughter. So for me, I think The Terminal is worth you checking out, especially if you liked Reacher, which Amazon also made. And hey, I'm not saying it's good because it pisses off the right people who seem to despise Chris Pratt because he appears to be a good person, but I have to say, that is a bonus. But either way, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Are you going to watch it? Have you already seen it? Let me know what you think of it. But for now, that's it from me. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.